Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, we will be doing Firebase authentication in ReactJS. And for this tutorial, I would be using the new API that is a V9 API provided by Firebase. And it uses a modular approach and it uses tree shaking so that the final bundle size of your application is way less as compared to the previous API that is provided by Firebase. So this is the application which we are going to build, and the first thing you'll notice is the sun icon here, and this icon simply means that this application would be dark mode compatible, and for each and every template or each and every page would be dark mode compatible. And we won't be building this application from scratch. I would be providing you with a starting project here from our GitHub repo, and this application uses ChakraUI as the UI library for this project. And here we have a very simple home page, and it displays us that what all we are going to do in this application. Firstly, we would be handling the email and password and authentication with the register and login pages. So if you go to the login page, we have this login page, and we would also be implementing sign in with Google because of this button here. And then we also be having this forgot password thing here. And then if we want to go to the register page, we can simply click here to go to the register page, and then we have the typical register form here. So let's go back to the home page here. So we are handling the forgot password, but one thing which we are doing custom here is this, that for reset password page, we won't be using the default UI provided by Firebase, but instead we would be using our own password reset page to handle the reset functionality of the password. So this is the sample link of the reset password page. So if we go to this link, then we see that we have this reset password page. So whenever an email comes to the user's inbox requesting him to reset the password, the user would be redirected here on this application, that is on this page, to reset the password and not to the default Firebase UI. So let's go back once again. And for handling all the events related to authentication, that is the login, register, forgot password, reset password, checking whether the user is logged in or not, we would be implementing our own hook here, and that is the useAuth hook. And basically this useAuth hook would contain all the logic implemented by Firebase authentication, so that our application is much more cleaner than using the Firebase functions in different places of our application. We would be simply using this useAuth hook to implement all the features. And then we would be showing you the loading indicators. That is, I'll demo this to you. That is what I mean by this loading indicator. So let's go to the login page here, and let me try to log in here with the email from which I am registered to this application. So let me do this login here, and as soon as I click sign in, this button would be disabled and a loading spinner would be shown here. So now let me click on sign in here, and we see that the button is disabled and we got a loading spinner there. And as soon as we are logged in, we see that we are taken to the profile page here, and this is basically the profile of the currently signed in user. So let's go back to the home page again, and this I already talked about, that is this application is dark mode compatible. And let's go to the profile page here, and we would be also handling the protected routes here as well. So let me log out of this application and this profile page, and there is one more page. Let me show it to you. That is this test page. This is only displayed to the users only if they are logged in. If they are not logged in, then these pages would not be displayed. Instead, they would be taken to the login page. So let me demo it to you. So let's log out first, and now let's go back to the authentication page, that is the home page here. And now so we are logged out here, and we also see that the navbar is displayed accordingly if the user is logged in or if the user is logged out. So if I try to go to this test page here, we see that we are taken to the login page and not to the test page. But now if I log in here, that is using the registered email address and password, we see that we are taken back to that test page. So we are handling one more thing here, that is the user would be taken to that exact page from where he came from. That is, we requested the test page, but the user was not logged in, and therefore we came to the login page, and then once we logged in, then we are taken back to the test page. So now if I want to go to the profile page, I can go here, and now let me log out once again. And now let's go to the home page, and now let me go to this profile page here. Like this. So we see that we are not logged in, so we are taken to this login page. And now if I log in again, then we should be taken to the profile page and not to the test page. So we see that we are taken to the profile page. So this is all what we are going to do, and let me also demo you the sign in with Google thing here. So let me click here, that is sign in with Google. So we are logged out currently. So let me click on sign in with Google. And now basically this would open a pop-up here, and it would not open a new window, but since I'm in full screen mode, so I'm getting this window open here, but this should be a pop-up inside your application. So let me select on any account here. So let me click on this account, and now we see that this window would be automatically closed. And now we are again back on this Firebase authentication page, or this application here. And now one thing more which I want to show you, that we already saw that we cannot access the profile and test page with our both protected routes, but we can also not access the login page and the register page once we are logged in. So currently if I click on login, we are taken to the login page, and if I click on register, we are taken to the register page. So let me click on login here, or let me click on login, and let me also show you one more thing before showing you that these pages are not accessible after the user is authenticated. So let me provide in a wrong password here. So if I click on sign in, then we see that we get back this toast here, that is authentication password wrong. So let me provide in a valid password here, and now if I click on sign in, so we see now we are taken to the profile page. And now if I wanted to go to the login page, that is, though we cannot see it in the nav bar, but we can manually go to the login page here. But as soon as I click on this login page, we see that we are redirected back to the profile page and not to the login page. So this is also what we are going to handle here. And we also cannot go to the register page here, as I can see. So we are not able to go to the register page, though it flashes for a couple of seconds. But that is the way Firebase works, because it fetches the current user, and if the current user is signed in, then we are taken back to the profile page. So basically what we are going to do in this application is that you will be getting all the skeleton of each of the pages, that is this home page, this profile page, and this logout button there, and then we have this login page here. So we won't be building this UI from scratch, because like it would take unnecessary time, and it is super simple, and you can use any UI for this application. If you do not prefer using ChakraUI, then you can use Material UI, or you can use Semantic UI, or you can simply use plain Bootstrap, or you can use Tailwind. So with whatever your choice is, you can use that UI library, or you can use that UI. And in this video we would be only talking about the logic of handling Firebase authentication and not building the UI. So in the demo application, or in the starter project, what we have is simply a form here. That is, this is a simple form here with this input field as an email input field. This is a password input field, and this is a button. So you only need to know that these are three fields, and this consists of one form here, form element here. So we have this pre-built inside our starter project, and similarly the same goes for this register page here. So we have the simple form here, that is the email field, the password field, and the sign up button. So this incorporates one form here, so that we do not waste time in building this UI components. So now let's go to our GitHub repo here, from where you would be starting with me. So basically this is the repo, and I'll provide the link in the description below. So basically here are two branches. One is the master branch and one is the starter project branch. So what we need to do is to clone this repo on our systems, and then we would be switching to this branch that is called starter project, and we would be working upon this starter project. And if you want to use the completed application, then you can simply use the master branch, and then you can work ahead with that branch. So now let's clone this repo. So what I'll do, I'll go to this code thing here, and I'll simply copy this clone URL here that starts with HTTPS. And now what I'll do, I'll go to my terminal here. If I do ls here, we are in the root directory or inside the home directory. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clone this repo. So I'll do git clone and the path of this repo. So let me press enter, and it would clone this repo inside this React Firebase auth. And now if I do ls, so we see that we have this directory called React Firebase auth. So let me cd into that directory, that is React Firebase auth. And now let me again clear out the screen. So now if I do ls here, we see that we have these files here. And if I do git branch here, you see that you only have the master branch. But don't worry, the starter project branch is also present. So what I'll do, I'll simply do git checkout starter project like this. And now we would be switched to the starter project branch. So now if I do git branch, we see that we have the starter project branch also. And now let's open this branch or this code inside VS Code, because I prefer to use VS Code as my text editor, though you can use any text editor. So let me simply do code dot to open it inside VS Code. And now here it opens. So let me go full screen here, and let me also increase the zoom level of this VS Code thing. Not too much, but this much. So let's have a look at the source folder here. So here we see that we have one folder called components, which contain the app router, which is using the React Router DOM. And if you do not know how to use React Router DOM, then you can watch my video that is linked above. And in case, even if you don't know that how to use ReactJS, then I have a very wonderful video about ReactJS. That is the best video on the planet, I suppose, to learn React. So you can also follow that video if you do not know how to use ReactJS. And then we have some components here, that is the navbar, the nav link, and so on and so forth. They basically contain the UI of the application. And then here we have some pages here. So basically this is the home page. So let me show you the home page here. So this is the home page here. And similarly, we have the login page, the not found page, that is in case if any route doesn't exist. So that is handled by that not found page. So if I go to some unnecessary route, so we have this not found page, so which you can design according to yourself or according to your needs. So let's go back once again. So here we have the profile page, here we have the protected page, just to demo you how protected page works. So this was a test page in our case. And then we have the register page, and then we have the reset password page also. And we also have the forgot password page. So let me also show you the forgot password page here. So let me go to this login thing, and if I click on forgot password, I simply need to click on enter my email address here. And if the email address is valid or it has been registered on the account, that is a Firebase account, then we would be getting an email from Firebase, that is, you need to go to this link to reset your password, which would eventually take you to this reset password page, that is this page. So that's all what we have here. And if I go to the app.js file, here we are simply returning the app router, because each and everything is handled by our app router here inside this app router. And here we have a very simple app router using React Router DOM. So here we are using simple router here, and then we have the switch cases here, and here we have the paths for each of the pages. So why not let's run this application, or before running this application, let me also show you the index.js file here. So if I go to the index.js file here, we see that we are using ChakraUI here, and this is a red squiggly line here because I have not installed the dependencies here. I've just cloned the repo as of now. So this is basically the configuration of ChakraUI, and you don't need to worry about this if you do not want to use ChakraUI. And if you want to use ChakraUI, then this is the default things which you always need to do inside any of your ChakraUI applications. So let me start this application on port 3000. So let me do npm start. So okay, I cannot do npm start because I need to install the dependencies. So firstly, let me clear out the console here, and now let me do npm I to install all the dependencies here. And now it would take a moment or so to install all the dependencies. So now the dependencies have been installed. So now let's start this application. So let me do npm start, and by default it would start on port 3000. Though the previous application was running on port 4000, as we can see inside the completed application, that is, this is running on port 4000, and this application is running on port 3000. That is the application on which we are going to work upon. So let me close this report app here, and I would keep this application for reference here. That is the completed application. So we see that we have this page here that is contained in the starter project. So if I click on login, we have this login page, register page, profile page, protected page, another protected page, and then we have a logout button which simply alerts the user, that is logout user, and then we have the dark mode button here. And implementing dark mode in ChakraUI is super simple to do, and it is super fun to have. So let's go back to our Firebase authentication, and if I click on this login page, and if I try to do anything here, so gmail.com 123456, we see that nothing happens here because nothing is implemented inside the starter project. So let's go to the login page of our starter project, that is this login page. So this is the form here, that is chakra.form, and it simply means that I can do styling using ChakraUI, so therefore I'm using chakra.form. Otherwise it is simply a form tag here. That's it is simply like this, that is, it is simply a form here. So chakra.form simply means that I can style using the ChakraUI library. If you are using any other library, then you can simply omit Chakra here. And then we have the on submit event here, that is whenever the form is submitted, we would be handling our event here. And then we have the form control thing here that is provided by ChakraUI, and here we are only having a single input field. So with the name of email, the type of email, and autocomplete email, and it is required. And then we have the password input field with the name of password, the type of password, autocomplete false, and required to be true. And then we have the sign in button. And then that's all about this form here. That is this form here. So from here up till here is our form. That is this form here. That is this form, small form here. And all these button basically links to other pages. That is, if I click on forward password, we are taken to the forward password page. If I click on register, we are simply switched to the register page. And if I click on sign in with Google, it simply alerts us that is sign in with Google. So basically we only have a simple skeleton and we would be implementing all the logic here. So before working upon any of the Firebase applications, what you need to do is you need to create a project inside Firebase. So this is the Firebase console here. And now what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to click this button, that is to add a project. And I already have a couple of projects here, the demo projects for the tutorial here. So now let me click on add a project. And now we need to give a project a name. So why not let's simply call it React Firebase Firebase Auth, simply like this. And now let me simply click on continue here. Now I do not want to enable analytics or anything else. I simply want to create a project as of now. So I'm unchecking this box here. And now let me simply click on create project. And now it takes a moment or so or a minute or so. So I would be fast forwarding this thing here. So we see that our project is ready and we are ready to rock. So let's click on continue again. And now we are taking to the dashboard of our React Firebase Auth project. And here we need to do a couple of things. So the first thing which we need to do is we need to click on this web thing. That is, we need to integrate web application. That is, we are going to use this project inside a web application, and ReactJS is a web application. Though you can use one Firebase project inside iOS also, inside Android also, and inside a web application also. So let me simply click on a web also here. Though you can also use Firebase inside Unity also, but we are going to click on this web thing here. So this is the thing I'm talking about. So let's click on this web thing here. And basically we need to give our app a nickname. So let's give our app a nickname. So let's simply call it a React app. And I do not want to enable Firebase hosting. If you want to add hosting to your Firebase project or this React project, then you can enable it, but we can do that later on if you wanted to do so. But currently I'm not simply setting up the Firebase hosting here. So I'm unchecking this box here. And now I'll simply do register app. And now it would provide us the details or the configuration, that is how to set up Firebase inside our React project. So now it says that we need to install Firebase, though we can get each and every stuff later on also. But why not let's simply install Firebase inside our terminal here, inside our project here. So let me stop the application here. Let me clear out. And let me simply do npm I Firebase. And by default, since you are watching this video right now, so it would be installing the dependency of Firebase that is greater than 9.1, I suppose. So you are good to go. You do not need to provide any manual version number of Firebase here. You simply need to do npm I Firebase to install the latest version of Firebase. So once I did npm I Firebase, so let's go have a look at the package.json file. So let me minimize the terminal here and let's go to the package.json file here. If we have a look at the dependencies tab here, so we see that the Firebase version which we are going to use is 9.1.0. So we are good to go. So let me close this package.json file here. And now what I'm going to do, let me minimize this pages thing here, the components thing here. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new folder inside this source folder. So let's call this utils. That is the name of the folder. And here inside this utils folder, I'm going to create a new file. And this file would be used to initialize a Firebase application. So let me simply call it init-firebase.js like this. And now what I need to do a couple of things here. So let me firstly simply copy the Firebase configuration from our this thing here. So what I'll do, I'll simply copy all the stuff from here. So let me simply copy it here. And basically using this approach, as it says that this option uses the Firebase modular JavaScript SDK. That is what we are already using since we are on version 9. So we can simply copy this piece of code from here and let's go back to our init-firebase.js and let me simply paste it here. So let me remove this line from here because we are not going to use it. So basically, in typical applications, you do not want to hardcode your API key, your auth domain and project ID and so on and so forth inside a configuration file. But instead, what you wanted to have is that you should be having a env file here. So what I'll do, I'll simply go to my terminal once again, and I'll create a file that is used for local developments, and I would be calling that file env.env.local, which would be containing all these keys here. So let me minimize the terminal once again. And now if I go to this env.local file, and now here what I need to do, I need to copy and paste these keys or these API keys. So let me simply copy some piece of code from my repo here so that it would be easy for me to work ahead. So let me paste it here. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to copy each and everything inside this Firebase config file here, that is the API key. I would be simply copying it from here and I would be pasting it here, and similarly each and every value from here to here. So we have the auth domain, so we have the React app underscore auth domain. And why I'm using React underscore app underscore API key, it is because we need to expose this environment variable, that is API key, to the browser. So to expose any environment variable inside React app to the browser, we need to always prepend our environment variable name with React underscore app underscore. So this is how it works. So now let me simply quickly copy this thing from here and let me simply paste it here. And we need to also copy this thing from here and we need to paste it here. And I would be telling you one thing more about this thing here. So let me simply copy and paste it here first, and then I would be simply telling it to you that what I'm talking about. So this env.local file is complete. And now what we can do, we can replace this thing from here, that is this API key, the auth domain, from the environment variables here using the process.env.react app API key. So let me copy it from here. So let me simply copy it from here and let me simply paste it here. That is, I'm copying and pasting from my repo. So now this is the thing which we have here, that is everything is coming from the environment variables here, from the .env.local file here. So basically if you are using Firebase storage, then you might be needing this storage bucket. But since we are using authentication, we can simply omit this thing from here also. It would not matter here. But rest everything you need to keep, because you need to have a message sender ID to send emails, and we also need to have the app ID. So these are all other keys you need to have inside your Firebase config here. So let's see what's happening inside this file here. So firstly, we simply imported this Initialize app from the Firebase app using the modular approach, and then we are simply creating a configuration file for Firebase to initialize the application. And in the last, we are simply initializing the Firebase application here by simply assigning it to a variable called app, and we are calling this function that is called initialize app, and we are passing in the Firebase configuration file here. So once let's go back again to this thing here, that is this page here, that is the Firebase page here. And now we can simply click on continue to console, because we have done each and everything here. So let's simply click on continue console. And now if you have previously missed, that is the copying of that configuration from the page which we just left. So what you can do, you can simply go to this thing here, that is this gear icon here, and you can go to the project settings here, or I guess that you need to simply go to this one app thing here, and you can click on the settings here, and then you can get that initialization function or that configuration file from here as well, if you missed that previously from the page which we just left. And now what we need to do, since we are doing Firebase authentication, we need to go to this authentication tab here that says authentication. So let me increase the font size a little bit here. So I would be needing to go to this authentication tab here. And now we need to click on get started. So this is some plain stuff which is like self-explanatory. And now we can use Firebase authentication by using providers like Google, Facebook, and so on and so forth. And in this video, we would be using the Google OAuth authentication for Firebase, and we would be using the email and password authentication. So let me simply click on email password. And now let me simply click on enable here, and we won't be doing passwordless sign in here. So once you know how to do email and password, passwordless sign-in would be super simple to do. So here I am simply enabling email / password authentication, that is with credentials. So now let me simply click on save here. And now the same thing I would be doing for this Google authentication. So I would be clicking here, that is add new provider, and I would be clicking on Google here. And now let me click on enable here. And now here we need to provide in a public facing name, that is what the users will be shown whenever they click on sign in with Google. So that is, let me show it to you. That is, maybe this is the application here. So let me log in here. And now if I click on sign in with Google, so this is the public facing name which I'm talking about. That is, here we have a random public facing name, but this should be some decent name to be provided here. So let's call this name, or let's give this application a name, something great. So let's call it React Firebase Auth. So this is the name we chose here, that is the public facing name. And then for the project support email, let's keep our default email address here. And now let me simply click on save here. That's all what we need to do here to enable Google authentication or Google sign in here. So it shouldn't take that much time, but now it is done here. And now what I'll do, I'll go to my React app again, that is this application, or we need to go inside VS Code. And now we need to do a couple of things here to enable authentication using Firebase Auth here inside this init file here. So now what I'll do, I'll simply import one more thing here, and that is the get auth function from Firebase Auth. So Firebase /auth. And you can see that we are using a modular approach here, and we are using tree shaking here. We are simply want to get the get auth function here. So we are simply getting the get auth function here. And lastly, we need to go to the very bottom of this file to create an instance of our auth here using this Firebase app here, which is initialized here. So we'll simply want to export one constant here, that is export const auth would be equal to get auth function, and it simply takes in the Firebase app as the only argument. So let me simply provide an app here, and we are going to use this auth inside our auth context. So to create a context, what I need to do, or what I prefer, is to create a folder called context. So let me simply create a new folder here inside the source folder called context, like this. And inside this, I want to create a new file that would be called authcontext.js. So authcontext.js, like this. So now inside this authcontext.js file, we would be creating our auth context. So firstly, we need to import a couple of things here. Firstly, we need to import something like create context. So let me firstly say from a React, and now we want to import here create context. And then we would be also importing use context hook, use context here, because I would be telling you that why I'm importing use context here directly inside the auth context here. And then we would be importing use effect, and everything you would get to know that why I'm doing so. And finally, we also you need to import the user state here, because you would be needing those hooks also. And now what I'll do, I'll import the auth thing here from our init firebase.js file, that is this auth instance here inside our auth context. So I'll say from dot up one folder, and then we need to go to the utils folder, and then we need to go to the init firebase thing, and then we simply need to import the auth thing here, which we just initialized a couple of moments ago. And now that's all what we need to do. And we also need to import a couple of things from the Firebase auth package here, but we would be doing that later once we create the auth context here. And to create the auth context, it is super simple to do. So we'll simply say const auth context would be equal to create context, like this. And then here we need to provide in the default value, or we can say placeholder values, so that we get better auto completion inside VS Code. Though it is not at all necessary to provide any placeholder values here, that is, you can keep your create context like this also, but it would give you a red squiggly line, but it would work perfectly fine. But simply to provide in placeholder values and let VS Code know that what we expect of this auth context, so we need to provide in some placeholder values. So firstly, the first value which we need here would be the current user, and the type of this current user would be null. This user would be null and not the type. I was simply working with TypeScript, so I simply called it type, but the placeholder value of this current user would be null. And now what I need to do, I need to create a context provider, that is this auth context provider. So I would simply say export default, because I would be exporting this function as a default. So I would say export default function auth context provider. And if you do not know how to work with context API, then you can watch my video again, that is linked above in the cards here, and you would be finding that video in the bottom of the description also. And now here we would be having some children like this. So this is the auth context provider, and here we simply use the user state thing here for initially, and the value of this user state or the name of this user or the state variable would be current user, not current user, like this, set current user, and initially the current user would be null always. And now what we need to do, we need to provide the context from this context provider. So we'll simply say we want to return here auth context dot provider like this, and then between this we would be simply passing the children here, which we get here as props here. And now this auth context dot provider expects us to pass some values here. So let's create our values object here. So let's simply say const value equal to current user like this, and now we would be simply providing in the value here, and the value would be simply value here, simply like this. And now we have this auth context provider. And now you might be wondering that why I said that we are going to need the use context here instead of using the use context in other parts of our application, because we are going to create our own hook here, that is the useAuth hook, which would be simply consuming this use context here. And to do that, what we simply need to do, we can simply say export const useAuth, that is our custom hook, would be equal to an arrow function here, and it would simply consume this context here, and the context it would consume would be this auth context that we just created. So auth context, simply like this. And now that's all what we need to do as of now inside this auth context.js file. And now what we need to do, we need to wrap our application inside this auth context provider so that we can have this current user or this currently signed in user. So to do that, to wrap our application inside this auth context provider, what we need to do, we need to go to our app router here. And now to wrap our application, what we need to do, we need to go to our app.js file here. So currently it is simply returning the app router. So instead of simply returning the app router, what I want to return here, I simply want to wrap this app router inside this auth context provider. So I'll say auth context provider, so auth context provider, and it is automatically imported here, and we wrap this app router inside this auth context provider here. And now if I go to any page of our application, so let's go to the home page here, and if I want to use the useAuth hook, we can simply import it here. So let me simply show you that do we get the current user to be null here. So just below this home page, let me provide in a placeholder value inside this text tag here. So firstly we need to use the useAuth hook here, so useAuth, and we see that as soon as I use this useAuth, it is automatically imported from this context file here that it says auth context, and we are importing the useAuth hook. And what it returns us some value here. So the value in which we are interested, which would be the current user. So this is the thing I'm talking about, this current user here, that is this current user, that is I got that auto completion because I just simply provided here the placeholder value of current user. That is what all values are passed here from the auth context.provider thing. So that's why we simply provided this current user here. And now we can simply use a string here or a template literal here. So we can say the current, or we can do it more easy way, or we can use it this way, the current user is, and we can simply use this dollar thing here, and we can simply say current user like this. So if we save this application, and let's say if it is started, so let's start this application by doing npm start, and now the application would be started in a couple of seconds. So let's go to the home page here. So we would be getting this current user to be null. So it's reloading, and this is the thing I hate about React, that it is sometimes very slow to respond. That is the development of React. So let's go to Firebase Authentication, and we see that if you can see here, that is we are getting this thing here, that is the current user is null, and that's what we expect. But we see that our scaffolding of our auth context provider and our auth context is perfectly working fine, because we can see the null value here, and that is the value which we expect here as of now. So let's go back to our AuthContext provider here. So let's go to our AuthContext here. And now here, what I want to have is this, that I want to make the user sign in. So what we are going to handle is this register page here. So let me close some tabs here. So now if we have a look at the register page here, we see that we have a form here that starts on line number 28 that says chakra.form. And this is the on submit event. So what I can do, I can use some state values here, or if you are good at using Formic, then I would definitely recommend you using Formic as your to handle forms inside your application. But I do not want to teach you Formic in this video, and it would be super difficult for new ones to learn. Using Formic is in itself a different tutorial. So here I would be simply using some state variables here for our email and password. And now here what I want to have, we want to use some state variables. So firstly, we'll use the use state hook here. And the first state variable would be email, set email, initial state would be empty. And then we want to use another state here, and that would be the password here. So password, set password, initial state would be an empty string here. And then we need to have one more state variable here, that is whether the form is submitting or not, just to show you the loading spinner while the form is submitting. And it would be a boolean here. So use a state. So is submitting. And if you would be using Formic, then this is submitting would be automatically provided by Formic here. But since we are using plain user state here, so we need to provide in a is submitting boolean here. Initially it would be false, that is the form is not submitting. And then we would also be needing a toast here, and that is the toast to display whether you can register a user or whether you cannot register a user. So for that I am using a toast by ChakraUI. So we can simply use the use toast hook. So use toast like this, and this simply gives us toast back equal to use toast like this, and this use toast is automatically imported here from ChakraUI. And now that's all what we need to have as the state variables. And now what I'll do, I'll simply control my form using these state variables. So what I'll do, I'll go to this input field here that says name, email, type field, type email, autocomplete email required this. So what I'll do, I need to provide in here a value. So value would be email, that is a state variable, and then on change, that is whenever this input field, I want to set the email to be the current value of this input field. So I'll simply say on change, we have the event. And then what we need to do with this event, we need to simply set the value of this email, that is this state variable, to be e.target.value, simply like this. So this is our input field for the email field. And now the similar thing we need to do inside the password field. So the value would be this state variable, that is password, like this, and on change. So on change, I would be copying it from here because it remains the same thing here. And instead of set email, we would be simply setting the password here. Simply set password here. So that's all what we need to do inside this form here. And this is submitting. So let me fix the spelling mistake here. So it should be submitting like this. So this is a boolean whether the form is submitting or not. And in ChakraUI, you can simply use the is loading prop here on the button to simply show the loading indicator. So this is the sign up button here, and let me increase the font size a little bit here. And here I can simply say is loading would be equal to is submitting. If this is true, then we would be seeing the loading indicator. So let's save this also. And now what I'll do, I'll go to my this thing here, that is on submit event of the form here, and I simply want to log in the values of this email and password here. So what I'll do, I'll simply say console.log email comma password. Let's save this application and let's go back and let's try to go to the register page here, and let me open the developer tools here. So let's simply do right click and inspect, and let me simply show the console here. So how do I increase the font size of the console? So this is pretty big enough, and let me clear out the console first. So we are on the register page, and if I type in any email address .com, password 123456, whatever it is, and if I press enter, we see that we are getting these values here, that is this value here, that is the email, and this is the password. So now we can use this email and password to sign into Firebase. So now this is pretty simple, and what I want to do is this, that even if I clear out this password, I am able to not submit the form because it says that this field is required, but we can do a manual check inside our application very easily. So now we are getting this email and password here inside this form. So let me comment it out. And now what I need to do, I'll simply say if not email, that is if the email field is empty, or if the password field is empty, like this, then I simply want to show a toast. And to show a toast, we already included the use toast hook here from ChakraUI, and I can simply say toast, and here I can simply provide in the description of the toast, and here we can simply say credentials not valid, and then we can simply display the status of this toast to be an error toast, error, like this. And then we can pass in the duration here to be 500 milliseconds, or 5000 milliseconds to be at least to be of 5 seconds. And then we can simply say is closable, whether the toast is closable or not. So we can simply say is closable to be true, like this. Nothing fancy here, only a little bit fancy stuff. Not so fancy, but a little bit fancy stuff. And now what I need to do, if we pass this test, that if the password field and email field is not empty, then the first thing which we need to do, we need to set the submitting of the form to be true. So we can say set is submitting to be true, like this. And now what we need to do, we need to register the user. But how do we register the user? Because inside our auth context, we do not have any register function here. So let's open this auth context file here. So let's open this auth context file. And now what I want to do, I want to create a function called register user. So let me create a function here. So function register, or simply register instead of register user, and it takes in two values, that is the email and it takes in password here. And now what it would return, it would return something or a function to create a user with email and password using Firebase Authentication. So to do that, what we need to do, we need to import something from Firebase Auth package. So import something from Firebase Auth, like this. And what I need to import here, we need to import one function here, that is create user with email and password. So now inside this function called register, we are simply returning a promise with this function call here that says create user with email and password. And here it takes in three arguments. Firstly, it takes in the auth, which we initialized inside the init Firebase file. And then it takes in the email and the password thing, and it simply returns us a promise with user credential. So we can simply pass in auth, and then we can simply pass an email, and we can pass in the password here, like this. So auth comes from this init Firebase file, that is this auth, from this get auth function. And then this email and password is coming from our register page, that is from this form submission. So this is how registration works. So let's go to this register page, and now we can use this hook, that is the useAuth hook, with this register function. So we need to provide in this value here. So we can simply pass in this value here, that is this function here inside the value here. And again, because of auto completion, I would be simply providing here register, and it would be a function which simply returns a promise. And this is simply a placeholder function. And now we can go back to our register page here, and now we can import that useAuth hook. So we can say useAuth, like this, and we can simply say const something equal to useAuth, and we need to import this useAuth. So let me import this useAuth here. So why it is not auto completing, I do not know. So let me import useAuth from we need to go up one folder, or we need to go inside this folder. Which folder it was? It's context, AuthContext. So, and what we require here, we simply need to have this register function here. And now we can call this function because it is a promise. So we can call that function here. So we can say register, and here we can pass in the email, we can pass in the password here. And then since it's a promise, so it is a denable function, and we are not interested in the user object here, or we can simply type in the response here like this. And if there was a response, we can simply console log the response here, which would be containing the user object. And then if there is a potential error, if there is, then we can simply console log the error. So we can simply say console.log error.message like this. And then we may also show a toast, but that's up to you if you want to show a toast or not. But let's show a toast here because we want to provide in something that would give us an error here. So for that, I'm simply copying this toast from here and I'm simply pasting it here. So let me put it on the next line here, and the description of this toast would be error.message. So error.message like this. And finally, what we need to do, we need to set is submitting to be false. That is, we do not want to keep the loading indicator to be spinning always and always forever. So we can say finally, we have the arrow function here, and we can simply say set is submitting to be false. That is, the form is submitted. So let's try out this stuff. So let's go back to our application and let's clear out the console. And let me provide in this email address at gmail.com, password 1234. And we click on sign up, we get the loading spinner, and we see that we are getting this message here. That is, password should be at least 6 characters long. Auth weak password. So it depends on you, how do you want to show this error, but I'm showing it in a toast here. So now let's try out another password here that is at least 6 characters long. So now the password is 123456. So let's click on sign up. And now we see that nothing happens, the spinner stopped, but inside the console, we get back this user credential object here, which tells us the operation type, the provider ID, the user itself. That is, this is the user here. And if I go to my Firebase console here, and if I go to this users tab here, then we would be seeing this new user here that says trulymittal@gmail.com is registered. And if I try to register this user once again, that is, if I click on sign up again with this simply this user, then it would say that auth and email is already used. So this stuff is pretty much working. And now, in the same way, we can handle the login functionality for our application. So let's go back to our application because login and register is almost the same. So firstly, we need to go to the auth context. We need to create a function here. So let's create a function here which says login. And here again, it takes email and password as the only arguments. And now it would return something. So firstly, let me go to the top here. And now I would need to import this function here, that is sign in with email and password like this. And here sign in with email and password, and it takes in 3 arguments, that is the auth here, the email and password here like this. So let's save this application. Let's copy this login here. Let's pass it to the value here. And for the placeholder, I would be simply copying and pasting it here, and let me change it to login here, simply like this. So let's save this. Let's open the login page here. And now our login page and register pages are almost the same because only the function calls differs. So let's copy some piece of code from register page and let's paste it here inside the login page. So we need to have the email thing, we need to have the password thing here, we need to have the is submitting here. And we also need to have the use toast, and we need to also have this useAuth function or this useAuth hook. So let's copy each of that stuff and let's paste it here at the very top of our application, that is the login page. And now let me simply import it here from the AuthContext. And what more do we need to copy? We need to copy these 2 pieces of code also, that is the value and on change event from the email field. So we can paste it in the email field of this form, that is this login form, and this is the email field. So let me paste it here. And the same way, we need to put in the place in the password field, that is the value and on change event. So let's paste it here, that is for the password field. And let's save this and let's go back again to the on submit event of this form. So let's simply copy and paste this piece of code again and this piece of code again. So let's copy Or why not, let's simply copy each of the stuff from here, because everything is same, nothing is changed here. Only we need to change this register function from the useAuth hook. Instead of register, we need to simply change it to login, because both the functions that is inside the auth context, both the functions only take an email and password as the parameters here. So let's go to the login page, and inside the on submit event of this form, we simply paste all the stuff here. That is, if there is no email inside this input field, or if there is no password, then we simply say credentials not valid, or whatever you want to display as the toast. And then we simply say is set is submitting to be true, that is the form is currently being submitted. And then instead of register, we need to call in the login function, and we need to import this login from this useAuth hook instead of this register. So now we call the login function from this useAuth hook here. And now once we do the login thing, then we are simply logging in the console, and if there was an error, then we simply display the error with the error message. And finally we are simply set the is submitting to be false. So let's save this and let's try it out. And don't worry about this issue here, that is this squiggly line red here, because it is something related to this this way which we have used here for the create context here. So it doesn't matter, that this line doesn't matter here. So let's try it out. So let's go to the login page here, and let's try to log in with a user which doesn't exist. So yours truly 267 or 2607 at gmail.com, password 123456. Let me increase the font size. So let's simply clear out the console first, and let me simply click on sign in. And we see that we get this error, that is user not found. And this is very true, because inside our application only trulymittal@gmail.com is registered. So let me simply try to log in with trulymittal@gmail.com, password 12345, which is not the correct password. So we would be getting password wrong password. That is very true. So let me provide in the correct password. So we see that we are getting the user credential object. And this time we do not see the sign in button, that is the loading spinner here. And that is because inside this button, that is the sign in button, I have not implementing the is loading feature, that is loading to be equal to is submitting, like this. So let's save this, and now let's try it out once again. So now it is. So now let's see one more thing, that is what happens when a user signs into your application. So if he signs into your application, he should not be left on the login page, but instead he should be redirected back to his profile page, which is currently an empty, which is currently an open page, but he should be redirected back to the profile page, and he should not remain on the login page. So that is pretty simple to do. So firstly, we need to use the use history hook from the React router DOM. So let me remove this from here. So we can say const or we can simply say const history equal to use history, and this use history hook comes from the React router DOM library, that is this library. And what do we want to do with this history hook, or with this history hook? We can go here, that is if the response was valid, that is if we are able to log in the response, then what do we want to do? We want to push the user to the new route. So we can say history.push, and here we want to push him to the profile page, that is once he is logged in, we want to push him to the profile page. So let's save this. So let's go back once again, and now what I'll do, I'll simply say trulymittal@gmail.com, password 123456, and if I click on sign in, we should be redirected back to the profile page. So we are able to go to the profile page once we are logged in. So this is good. We are able to register users to our application. We are able to make them log into our application. But how does our application know whether this application currently has a user or not? Though we see that we have logged in, but this current user is still null. We have not attached this current user, that is this current user, inside our AuthContext, which is used here as a state variable, with any of the functions call. That is, even if the user is registered, we are not tying this current user to this register call. We are not tying this user to this login call. So how do we do that? So it is pretty simple to do. There is an auth change event handler inside this Firebase auth package. So let me import it here. That is on auth state change. So this function would be called whenever the status of the authentication changes from signed out to signed in and from signed in to signed out. So it would make us know that whether the current user is null or whether there is a user. So to use this auth state changed event handler, what I'll do, I'll simply use it inside a use effect hook. That is, whenever our application loads, we would be simply attaching this event handler to inside the use effect hook. And then whenever we are unmounting our application, then we would be simply unsubscribing to this on auth state change event handler. So let's use the use effect hook. So use effect like this, and then we can say const unsubscribe, and I would let you know why I'm calling this unsubscribe here in a moment, equal to on auth state changed, and here it takes in the auth object which comes from the init Firebase file. That is the same auth object which we are using here inside the create user with email and password and sign in with email and password. So that is the same auth object, and then it provides us with the user here. That is, who is the user here? So here what we can do, we can simply say set current user to be user. If the user is null, then the user would be set as null. If there is a user, then the user would be set as this new user. So that's all what we need to do. And basically, if you have a look at the documentation of this on auth state change event handler, we see that this returns us an unsubscribe function. That is, we added this observer for our events on the initial render of our application, and as soon as the application closes, we want to also unsubscribe to this event handler or to this observer, because otherwise if you won't call this unsubscribe function, then multiple number of times your auth state change observer would be added and multiple events would be fired even on a single call. So we need to call this unsubscribe function whenever we are cleaning up with this use effect hook. So we can simply say unsubscribe simply like this. So that's all what we need to do here. And when do we want to run this effect? We simply want to run this effect whenever the component mounts and whenever the component unmounts. So this would run whenever the component mounts, and this would run whenever the component unmounts. That is, whenever your application loads and whenever your application unloads. So that's all what we need to do here. So now if we go back to our application and if we have a look here, we see that we saved our application and we see here that the current user is this object and object. So let's display this current user inside the profile page here. So let's go to the profile page here. And now let's use the useAuth hook. So useAuth like this. So const something equal to this useAuth. And here we want to have the current user here. And now inside the pre-tags, I would be displaying this current user. So inside this container of thing here, I can simply use this tag here, that is chakra.pretags. And here I would simply say json.stringify current user comma null comma 2, and I need to import this chakra here, and it is simply a pre-tag, and this chakra dot is only used for styling. So let's save this and let's go back, and now we see that we have this current user inside our profile page. And if I click on logout, so nothing happens here because we do not have any functionality to log out the user. So let's see that how do we log out a user. So let's go back again to our auth context, and here what I want to do, I want to again declare a function here that says logout, and it takes in no parameters, but we need to call a function from Firebase auth. So let me import a function here that is called sign out like this, and here we simply need to return this sign out function that is coming from Firebase auth. So it only takes in the auth object here. And now we need to pass this logout to this value thing here. And now this logout would be available to us. And again, this returns as a promise here. As we can see that this returns as a promise here. And now again for the placeholder values. So let me simply copy and paste it here, and it would simply say logout. Though I know that this is not a pretty good approach because you get some squiggly lines at other places, but this is only used for auto completion inside the application and nothing else. So now we have this logout function here and we have this logout here, which simply returns a sign out promise. So let's handle that sign out from our navbar. So let's go to the components here. Let's go to the navbar here. And here, if we have a look here, we see that this is the place where we are going to log out the user. And this is the place from where we are getting the alert message saying logout user. So again, what I need to do, I need to use the useAuth hook here that is coming from our AuthContext, and it exports or it provides us with this logout function like this. And now instead of this alert, what I need to do, I need to simply call in logout like this. So let's save this and let's go back to our application. And now let's click on this logout, and once I click on this logout, there would be no user object here and this would be a null value here. So let me click on logout here, and now we see that this is null. And now if I click on login again, so let me provide in this email and password here once again, 123456. Let's log in. We are taken to the profile page and we have this user object here, and if I click on logout, the user is again null here. So that's all what we need to do to log out a user here. So now until now we have handled register user, login user, and logout user. So let's do one more thing, that is how to sign in user with Google account. So that is again pretty simple to do. We need to again do a couple of things inside the auth context. So let's go to the auth context here, and here what we can do, we can simply create a function again here. So function sign in with Google like this, and here what we can do, we can simply say const provider equal to new something, and what that something is, and that something comes from this Firebase auth package, that is Google auth provider. And here we can simply say Google auth provider like this, and now what we can do, we can again return something which is again a promise. So sign in with pop-up. So pop-up, so let me first import the sign in with pop-up. So let me again import this sign in with pop-up like this, and now we are going to use this function here, that is sign in with pop-up, and here we need to provide in the auth instance, and then we need to provide in the provider here. So provider, so you can see that the way we are using this Google auth provider, you can use any of the auth providers like GitHub or Facebook in the same manner. So there is no difference in that. So now we have this function here, that is sign in with Google. So let me provide this as a value here. So let's go to our login page here. So let me again paste it here also, that is inside this thing here. So let me copy and let me paste it here. And now let's go to the login page, and now here where it says that sign in with Google, currently we are simply showing an alert here, but instead we want to call that function, that is sign in with Google. So let me import that function here, that is sign in with Google from the useAuth hook. And now instead of simply alerting the user, that is sign in with Google, we simply need to call that function here, that is sign in with Google. So that's all pretty much we need to do about signing in with Google thing here. Or we can use it as a thenable also. So we can simply say dot then user, because it returns a user, and we can console log the user. So console.log user, and then if there is a potential error, then we can simply say error, and then we can simply console log the error here like this. So this is what we need to do here, and don't worry about this squiggly line because that is something to do with the placeholder values. Don't worry about that. So this is what we are doing here. So let's save this and let's try to sign in with Google. So let's click on sign in with Google. We are taken to this new page here, though since it's in full screen mode, so I am being taken to a new page here, but instead on a typical application, this would be simply a pop-up and not it would not open in a new window. So let's simply click on this yours truly account here. And now we see that we are redirected back, and now we have this credential object. And if I go to the profile page here, we see that we have a user here that is with this email, yours truly 2607@gmail.com. So we can again click on logout to log out the user, and the same thing we need to do inside the sign in with Google thing inside the register page. But I hope that you can do it yourself because everything would remain the same. You simply need to import the sign in with Google function from the useAuth hook, and then you simply need to do it this way. So now everything seems to work fine with this Google thing. So now let me also tell you one more thing which is not a part of this video, but still it might throw you an error inside the console. So let me log out first and let me go to the login screen here. And if I log in here with trulymittal@gmail.com and password 123456, and if I click on sign in, then the typical behavior is this, that as soon as we are signed in, we are taken to this profile page. And if we have a look at the login page promise here, we see that we are calling in the login function. Then as soon as we get a response back, that is we have a valid user, then we are simply pushing the route to be this profile page. And then later on down the line, we are calling this set is submitting to be false. So there might be times that is this component, that is this login page component, is unmounted, and the new component, that is the profile component, is already mounted. So you are submitting the state of the state variable that is submitting on the login page, which is not mounted. So you might get an error that says that you are trying to update the state of a variable which is on inside an unmounted component. So it may provide you with memory leaks. So the way to do this is set is submitting to false. That is, we want to set the is submitting of this button to be false only if the current component is mounted. So in our case, we simply want to set this variable to be false only if the current component is mounted. If it is not mounted, then we do not care about that. So the way to do that is to use the useRef hook. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to import this useRef here. So it is already imported from React. So what I'll say const mounted equal to useRef, like this. And again, this is not a part of this video, but it is a part of React. But since we are making a template, so it is always a great idea to fill in all the blanks. So initially the component is mounted to be false, and now what I'll do, I'll simply use the use effect hook here, which would simply turn this mounted dot current to be true. So as soon as the component is mounted, that is inside component did mount, that is the behavior this use effect uses whenever we provide an empty dependency array. So mounted dot current equal to true, that is the component is mounted. And as soon as the component unmounts, we would say mounted dot current equal to false. And now what I am going to do, I am going to use this value, that is the current value of this mounted, to check whether it is false or if it is true. If it is false, then we won't be changing the state variable. Otherwise, we would be changing the state variable. So we can say mounted dot current and set is submitting to be false. That is, if mounted dot current is true, then only execute this piece of code to this new value. But now we need to do this stuff in each of the components, that is inside the register page also we need to do the same stuff. And if you have loading spinners elsewhere also, then we also need to do the same stuff elsewhere. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new folder here to create a new hook here, and I would be simply calling this hooks here. And now let me simply create a new file here that is called useMounted, and this would be a custom hook here. And let me simply scaffold a functional component here, that's the useMounted hook here. And now let me put in this value, that is we need to return something here, and the thing which we need to return here would be coming from the useRef hook. So we can say const mounted equal to useRef. And if you do not know again that is how to make custom hooks, then again you can watch my video that is linked below, and it is linked in the cards also at the top here. So let me import useRef from React, and now I want to use use effect thing here. So let me copy it from this thing here, that is use effect. So let me copy it and let me paste it here. and let me import use effect here. And now instead of returning a JSX here, what I simply want to return, I simply want to return mounted here. Simply like this. And now this is our custom hook, which we can use inside any of our application, that is inside any place of our application. So that's all what we need to do here. And now we can simply remove everything from here, that is mounted, and now we can simply use that hook, that is const mounted equal to use mounted, like this. And now this would work the same way as before, that is we are again using mounted.current, and it would work the same way. And again, we wanted to use this hook inside the register page also, so we can use that hook here also, that is use mounted, like this. So const not this thing, so const mounted equal to use mounted, and we need to import it. So let me copy the import path here from this thing here. I do not know why this is not auto completing for me, maybe my system is too old for this stuff. And now finally we can simply say mounted dot current, and only set the state of the state variable only when the component is mounted. And if the component is not mounted, do not update the state variable. That is the golden rule of thumb. So this is what we are doing it here. So now let me close each and every file, because we have worked on each and every file. And now let me show you one more thing, that is, let's go to this page here, and let me close this side window. And now let's see that how do we handle forgot password thing. Or before that, let me handle the navbar here, because we are, even if we are logged in, we are seeing this login, register, and profile, and protected, and logout. So we want to conditionally render the navbar here. So that is pretty simple to do, in case if you are following along with me till now. So we would be going to the components folder here, we would be going to the navbar here, and the thing which we need to do here is this, that we want to get the current user from our useAuth hook. So we can get the current user from our useAuth hook. And now what we need to do, we simply need to check if there is a current user, then we want to display the login thing. That is, if there is not a current user, that is not current user, then display this. So that's all what we need to do. And in the same way, if there is not a current user, that is, if the current user is null, then display this register page also. If there is a current user, that is, if the current user is there, that is, if the current user is not null, then show the profile page. And in the same way, we want to display the protected page also, that is current user. That is, only if there is a current user, then only display this protected page. And in case of the logout thing, again we want to display it conditionally depending on whether there is a current user or not. So we can again say current user and display this logout thing, otherwise do not display the logout button. And that's all what we need to do. If we save this, we go back, we see that now we are not getting those navbar links here. If we click on login here, if we sign in with Google, or let me sign in with this email address, so truelymittal@gmail.com, password 123456, sign in. And now we see that we get this profile, protected, and logout buttons. So this is how easy it was to implement this navbar. But still, if I wanted to go to the login page, I would be able to do so. So let's go to the login page, and I am able to go to the login page. And that's not what we want to do here. We want to also protect this login page. Like, it is kind of a reverse protection. So let me log out here. We cannot go to the profile page from this navbar. But if I want to go to the profile page, we can manually go to the profile page, and we can see null here. And this is also not what we want to do, but instead what we want to do here is this, that is, if I am requesting the profile page, like, we cannot request the profile page from this navbar, but we can manually request the profile page here from the address bar. So the typical logic would be, that is, we came here, we should not see this page, but instead we should be taken to the login page, and once we are logged in, then we should be redirected back to this profile page. So how do we do all that stuff? It is pretty simple to do, because for that we need to make a protected route. That is, we want to make this profile page to be a protected route. So let's go back to our application here, and let's go to the app router here. And currently inside our app router, we simply have all the routes here displayed here, which are simply childs of the switch statement. So now what I'll do, I'll simply create a protected route functional component here, and I'm going to do that inside this file itself, though you can do that inside another file. So I would say function protected route or protected page. Let me call it protected route, that makes more sense to me. And then it expects props here like this. So let me scroll down a little bit. So now we have this protected route, and now here what I'll do, I'll simply check if there is a user or not. So we can say const current user equal to useAuth like this, and this useAuth comes from our useAuth hook, that is from the AuthContext. And now we want to return something from here. So what we can do, we can simply say return if there is a current user. Then what we want to return, we simply want to make him go to the page which he is requesting. So we can simply return here this route here like this, and we can spread the props here that are coming from our protected route component. So we can spread the props like this. Otherwise, what we need to do, we simply need to redirect him back to the login page. So we can simply say redirect like this, and this redirect would be coming from the React Router DOM package. And now where to redirect, we can simply redirect him to this page here that comes from to path name would be /login, and then we would be having a state variable here so that we can redirect him back to the page he was requesting, not to the default page, that is not to the same page always, that is to the profile page always again and again, because here we are handling redirect to or back. That is, if the user comes and he requests the protected page, let's say we have two protected pages inside our application. One is the /test page, which is a protected page, and then we have a profile page, that is /profile, which is again a protected page. So now if the user comes and he requests /profile, he should be taken to the login page and then back to the profile page. And in the same way, if the user comes to the /test page, he is not logged in, he should be taken to the login page. Once he logs in, then he should be again taken back to the test page and not to the default profile page. So therefore, we need to provide here a state here that says that would contain an object from, and this from can be any name, whatever you like, and here I am simply calling it from, and here we need to provide in the path. And how do we get the path here? So if we have a look here, so whenever we are going to use this protected route, we are going to use it in the same way as we are using this route here. So we are going to provide a path object here or a path prop here. So we can extract the path from this props here. So we can say const path like this equal to props, simply like this. And now whenever we go back to the login page, then we would be having this previous path from where the user is redirected to the login page. So let's save this, and now let's make this route protected. That is, whatever route you want to protect, you can protect it using this protected route. So we want to protect this profile page. So let's, instead of route, we can say protected route like this, and I want to protect this protected page. So let me protect this protected page simply like this. And now let's save this application and let's go back. And now let's go to this try to go to this profile page. So let's go to this profile page. So we see we are redirected to the login page. So let me fill in the details here. So let me fill in the details quickly. So at gmail.com 123456, sign in, and now we are back to the profile page. But now let's see what happens if I log out here and if I request the protected page. So protected page. So we are back to the login page. So let me provide in the email and password 123456. So sign in, and we are again back to the profile page, and we are not back to the protected page which we requested for. And that is because if we go to our login page here, once the user is signed in, so let's see what we are doing here. So once we are logging in the user, once we have the user, there is a valid user, then we are simply pushing the route that is called profile on our history stack. But instead, we do not want to do that. we want to simply take him to the page which he requested initially. So to do that, what we need to do, we need to go a bit at the top here, and here we need to use the use location hook. So we can say const location equal to use location, like this, and this use location comes from React Router DOM. And now we can use that location hook here inside this history.push thing. And before using that thing, let me simply show you that what's all inside this location thing here. So let me simply console.log location here, like this. So let's save this and let's go back here. So let me inspect it and let me open the console here. Let's try to see that what's coming from this location object here. So if we go to the profile page and if we scroll up, we see that we are getting here this state variable inside this location, from this location hook, and it says that from profile. And now if I simply again go to this protected page like this, and if we scroll up, we see that the location thing contains the state and it contains this thing here, that is from protected page. So we can see that we can use this or let me show you one more thing, that is currently since we got to the profile page, we got this forward slash profile. When we got to the forward slash protected page, we got this as forward slash protected. But let's see if we directly go to this login page, what we will get here. So if we directly go here, we see that or let's go here, let's clear out the console first and let's try to go to this login page. And this time we see that the state is null. That is, there was no path which was an intermediate path which could have provided a state here. That is this thing here. That is, we did not use the this thing here. So where it was, so we did not use this protected route here. We directly use the route here. So therefore this state from path is not attached to the location object. So how can we use that location object? Because sometimes it contains something and sometimes it doesn't contain something. So we would be using a combination of ternary operator and a null coalescing operator. So we can do that very easily. So inside this history.push, we can say we want to push to location dot state dot from, or we want to push to profile page. But this is not the way it works, because this state might be null sometimes. So we want to use optional chaining here. Otherwise, we would be using this null coalescing operator, that is, if this is undefined. Because if this state is null, like this thing here, that is, if it is null, then this would be undefined. So we would be using the right hand side. Otherwise, we would be simply using the left hand side. So if we save this and if we go here, and now if I simply go to my home page here, and if I try to go to the profile page, we are taking to this page. So let me simply log in here. So let me go here, 1 2 3 4 5 6, and don't worry about this thing here, that is, this thing is coming again and again. I would be fixing this in a moment. So let's simply copy this email address and sign in, and we are taken to the profile page. So let's log out once again. This time let's go to the protected page. We are taken to the login page. So let's paste this email address again and let me log in again. And let me click on sign in again. So sign in. And now we see that we are taken to the protected page and not to the default profile page. And this is coming from something else. I do not know. Maybe I can fix it later on. So anyways, let me clear out the console here. So we see that now we are able to redirect it back to the protected page. But now as we can see that we are logged in, we can go to the profile, we can go to the protected page. And if I go to the login page, I am on the login page, but this should not happen. We should not be seeing to the login page, but instead we should be redirected back to the normal default page, like the Firebase authentication page or the profile page if we were on the profile page. So how do we do that? It is pretty simple to do. Inside our protected route, let's go to our app router. Firstly, what we want to do, we want to check that from which path we want to go to, that is, on which path we want to go to. So if path equal to /login, then we want to do something. And what we want to do here, We want to return something here, that is return if there is a current user. That is, if there is a current user, the user is signed in, then we simply want to redirect him back to the page he came from. So we can say redirect to location dot state dot from, like this. Otherwise, we simply want to redirect him back to the profile page, like this. Otherwise, what we want to do, like this. Otherwise, what we want to do, we want to simply direct him to the route which he requested, that is route, and then we simply spread the props here. So dot 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 props, like this. So I'm missing something here. That's definitely for sure, and this should be in parentheses, like this, and everything seems to work fine. And now we do not have the location here, so we can simply import the use location hook here. So use location from React router DOM, so const location equal to use location, and we need to import it from React router DOM. So now this is true, and now typically, and now similarly for register page, forgot password page, and reset password page, which we haven't handled, we need to do the same thing. So we can simply copy this thing from here, and we can simply say or register, that is, we want to only display the register page if he is logged in or she is logged in. And then for the forgot password page, we can do the same thing. And then for the reset password page also, we need to do the same thing. That is, we do not want to show the reset password page if the user is logged in. So this is all what we need to do here. And now what we need to do, we need to change this route. That is, instead of route, we need to put in protected route, like this, and forgot and reset password, they should also be protected route. So let's save this and let's try it out. So we are logged in. So let's go to the login page. We see that we are back to the profile page. And now the last thing remains is this, that if I click on logout and if I click on login, and if I want to click on forgot password here, then how do we handle this forgot password? So it is pretty simple to do. So let's handle this thing here. Firstly, let's go to this forgot password page.jsx. And again here, what we need to do, we need to use the state variable here, that is the email. So use a state email, because this would be used inside the forgot password form. Initial state would be an empty string, and inside this input field, this should have a value. So value would be email, like this, and on change event, on change, there would be an event, and which should simply set the state, set email, that is, set the state of this email field to be e.target.value, like this. And now inside the on submit event, what we need to do, we need to handle it the on submit event. So firstly, what we need to do, we need to go to the AuthContext here, and here we need to get one more function here, that is send password reset email. So send password reset email, and here, or we can simply say create one more function here. So function forgot password, so forgot password, not page but forgot password, and like this, and this only takes in one parameter, that is the email here, and this should start with a small f. And here we are going to simply return this send password reset email, and here it takes in the auth instance and the email here, and then some action code settings. And in typical tutorials, you won't get this thing here, that is, what are these action code settings? So let me provide it here as well. So here I am simply providing in a URL here, which would be taking us to the which would show us the button to continue to log in. So here our login page resides on this page here, that is localhost port 3000 /login. And Just remember this thing, that why I'm providing this button here. Just remember this, that I'm providing this URL here, which simply takes us to the login page of our application. And I would you would be getting it to know that why we provided in this email. Because if we haven't provided in this option here, that is with URL, then you won't be seeing one button on the Firebase UI thing. And just remember this thing here. So let's save this. And now what I'll do, I'll simply provide in this as a value here, and let me again do the same thing here like this, and let me save it, and let's go to the forgot password page. And here what I need to do, I would simply import the useAuth hook here for initially. So useAuth like this, const something equal to like forgot password like this. And now here what I'll simply say, forgot password, and here we simply need to provide in the email here like this. And again, I'm not making any validation checks here whether the email is valid or not. You can do it yourself on your own. And then we have a thenable here, so we can simply say dot then, or we have the response here, so we can simply console, or let me simply say that console.log response, and then we can cache the error here. So we can say error, what I'm doing here, so it should be error. So console.log, so console.log e.message, so like simply like this. And if you want, you can show a toast here as well, that is the email link has been generated and sent. So we can copy the toast from here. So let me copy the toast here and let me paste it here. So we can paste the toast here, but we need to import the toast here from ChakraUI. So we can say use toast from ChakraUI. So const toast equal to use toast. And if there is a response, that is the email has been sent, then we want to display a success toast. So success toast, and here we can simply say that email sent, check your email like this, and like this. And if there was an error, we can again show the toast here. So let me wrap it inside curly braces. Let me again show a toast here, and this would be an error message, and the error would be like this e dot message thing here. So let's save this and let's try it out. So let's try it out. So let me paste in this, let me provide in an email which doesn't exist on our account. So let's submit it. I haven't implemented that thing here, that is loading event. You can do it yourself. So we see that auth user does not found, which means this user is not registered. So if I provide in a valid email address which is registered on our account, on our Firebase account, so we see that let me refresh it. So we see that this is an email account, or which is an envelope here, and this is a Gmail account or a Google account, or which is this account. So we are registered with this user, and later on you can see that you can also reset the password of this user, and then your accounts would be automatically linked. So this is the account here. So let's go here. So let's submit here. So you see that email sent, check your email. So let's check our email. So here we see that we are getting one email like this. So we got this email that is no reply, reset your password for React Firebase Auth. So let's open this email. Let's try to go to this link here. So let's open this link. And now we see that we got a page to reset our password. So let's try to reset the password here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 again. Let me click on save, and this is the default Firebase UI. But instead, later on, or just after we are able to do this feature, then we are going to change this reset password page to our own reset password page, and we won't be using this reset password page. So let me click on save. And now we see that password change, we can now sign in. And now we see this continue button. So if you haven't provided this thing inside your application, so let me show it to you. So if you haven't provided this URL inside this send password reset email call, then you won't be getting this continue button here. You would not be getting any button here, but instead it would simply display this, that password is changed and now you can sign it with your new password, and the user is dangling in the middle and he doesn't know what to do next. So therefore the use of this URL option here is to provide Firebase to know that when the user has changed his password, where he should be taken to, and that's why we have this continue button. So if I click on continue button, we should be taken to the login page, and this is the exact URL, that is /login, which we have specified here. And if you want to make it more sure, then you can simply change in the URL and then you can see it for yourself. I'm not spending time in that. So now let's see that we are able to change the password. So now let's see that how do we handle password change inside our own application and not the default Firebase UI. So for that, we need to go to the Firebase console here, and we need to go to this templates thing here. And here we have this password reset thing. So let's click on this password reset. And here we need to click on this edit template thing. And here, if you want to change in the sender name, so currently we see the sender name as no reply. Like here we see no reply. If you want to change it to something else, you can simply edit this name here. If you want to add your domain, you can do that also. But here we need to change this action URL thing here. So here what we can do, we can simply say customize action URL. And here we need to provide in our own URL. So our own URL is this URL. So let's go here. So let's simply go to this page, that is reset password. So this is our reset password page, which we want to take the users to whenever they click on the link inside the email, and not to the default Firebase UI. So let me simply copy this URL from here, that is for the reset password. And now let me go to this thing here, and now inside this thing I simply need to paste in that reset password page URL. So now let me simply click on save, and now again let me click on save, and now this is done. That's all what you need to do, and the rest of the things you need to do inside your own application. So let's see what happens here. So let's click on login here. Let's click on forgot password. Let's fill in the email address, the right email address. So let's click on submit, and we get an email here, and we would be getting that email in a moment. And now we get an email, and now we see that our email link starts from localhost port 3000 and reset password. So let's click on this link. And now we see that we are on this reset password page. But now we cannot simply fill in the password here and we expect that Firebase would do all the magic. All the magic has to be done by you, and it is super simple to do again. So if we have a look at the URL here, we see that we have a mode called reset password, and then we have a OOP code, which is a long code here, and then we have the API key here. So this is all what we have here, and then we have the continue URL also, which simply means that where we want to take the user to after he or she has made their password change. So let's handle each and every query parameter here inside this URL to reset the password, because this OOP code is obviously very necessary to handle reset password. So let's do that. So again, what we need to do, we need to go to our AuthContext hook. So let's go to our AuthContext hook, and here we need to create one more function. So let's create a function here, and it would be simply called reset password. And here it takes in two parameters. One is the OOP code, and second is the new password. So new password, like this. And now here we need to return something, and whatever we are returning here from this AuthContext, from whatever functions we are returning, we are always returning a promise. So this would also be a promise. And here we would be simply returning confirm password reset. So let's handle that function here inside this thing here. So we imported this confirm password reset from Firebase Auth. So here we can simply say confirm password reset, and here it takes in 2-3 things. Firstly, we need to provide in the auth object like this. Then we need to provide in the OOP code, which we would be getting from this parameter, from this function call. And then we need to provide in the new password, which would be a new password. Simply like this. That's all for our auth context, and the majority of the work needs to be done inside this reset password page. And now, firstly, on the reset password page, what we need to have the function here. So useAuth, like this, and then we need to have something here. So const something equal to reset password. So we see that we do not get the auto completion here, so that's why I always do this stuff here, that is reset password here, and we need to paste in the reset password here as well, and then we need to provide in the reset password here as well. And now I would be getting in the reset password function here like this. And now we need to get the query parameters somehow. So getting the query parameters is by using the use location hook from the React router DOM. So for that, I would be simply making my own hook for the use query hook. So I would be simply creating a very simple hook here. So function use query like this, and then it would simply return new URL search params like this. And here I would be simply providing an use location. I'm directly using in the hook here dot search like this. Or if you want to make it easier, you can simply say const location equal to use location like this, and instead of this use location you can simply say location dot search. Like this is more intuitive. So now I can use this use query hook inside this reset password page. Though you want, you can make this function global or this hook global by placing it inside the hooks folder, but I'm not doing so. So here what we need to have, we need to get the query parameters. So we can say const query equal to use query like this, and now I can simply log in the query here. So console.log query like this. So let me save this reset password page and let's go back to our application, and here we have the URL here. So let me click on inspect, let me click on this console here, let me clear out the console, let me reload the page. And now we see that we get an empty URL search parameters. Okay, so never mind. So let's try to get this mode and oop code and continue URL, because those are the query parameters here. That is a mode, oop code, and continue URL. I think that's what it is called. So yep, so continue URL. So let's go here. So we can simply say query.get, and here we need to get the mode. I'm only demonstrating it. You do not need to get the mode here because we know that it is a reset password page. And then we have the oop code like this, and then we have the continue URL. So we can say continue URL like this. So let's save this and let's see if we are able to get those things stuff here. So we see that we are able to get this thing here, that is the mode here, the oop code here, and the continue URL here. So we are going to use this oop code here to reset the password. So let's go back to our application, and again what we need to have here is that we need to create one more state variable here, and that would be a password state variable here. So use a state. So use a state. So new password. Initial state would be an empty password here. So new password. So let's use this new password, and we would be providing it as a value here. So value would be new password. And then on change, we have an event here like this, and then with the event we would be setting the new password to be this e.target.value like this, and then I guess that's it. And now we would be handling the on submit event here, and inside this on submit event, what we need to do, we need to simply call this reset password function, which we destructured here from this useAuth hook. So we can simply say reset password, and here we can simply pass in the what it expects, the oop code and the new password. Okay, so the oop code we can get it from the query parameter. So query.get oop code. So again, I'm not making any checks here whether this is a valid URL or not. That means that someone is not forcefully coming to this URL without these query parameters. I'm not doing that. I'm assuming that some authentic person is coming from the link in the email, and it would contain an oop code. So get oop code and then the new password here like this, and then we can simply say dot then response. So we can say console.log response dot catch error. So catch error. So console.log error dot message, maybe like this. Let's save this, And now what I want to do, I also want to display a toast here, like the password has been changed, and now you can go to whatever page you want to do. So let me simply use toast here from ChakraUI again. So const toast equal to use toast, and here let me simply use that toast here. So we can simply paste in the toast here. Password has been changed. You can now log in, or if there was an error, we can simply log the show the error also to the client. So let me use the toast again. That is, this would be error.message, and it would be an error toast. So let's save this, and I suppose that this is pretty much about it to reset the password. And finally, when he's has resetted the password, we can take him to some other page. So we can, what we can do, we can simply say history.push. If the password reset is successful, then only we are getting this inside this then block. Then we can simply take him to the login page. And we do not have the history object here or the history hook here, because we need to import the use history hook from React Router DOM. So use history equal to const history equal to use history, like this, and everything seems to work fine as of now. Let's try it out. So let's clear out the console, let's give it a go, and I'm using the same link here, 1234567 reset password. It is reset, and now I can log in. So let me try to log in again with this new password, 123456. Sign in failed. 1234567 sign in, and this time I would be signed in. So log out. Let's try it one more time. So log out, forgot password, email address, truly Mittal, submit, and those are my kids that are speaking out loud. And now let's go to this link here, or to this email address. So let's have a look. So let me click on this link again. We are taken to our own page. New password 123456. Reset password. Password has been changed. You can now log in. Or I wanted to show you something else. So let me try it again. So let me simply click on forward password again. So I just wanted to show you something else. That is, if we get an error while changing the password. So let's see if we get the email here. So let me delete this email. So now we get this email. So if I go to this link, if I provide here 123 only, and if I click on reset password, then I see that I get this message that its password should be at least 6 character long, auth weak password, and you can handle this accordingly by yourselves. So I guess that this is pretty much about this video, and I hope that I've talked a lot about this stuff here, and each and every aspect of this application is working. And again, just to show you that how the dark mode looks, it looks like this. That is this page, and this page, and we have enabled email password, we have done Google sign in, we have done forgot password, we have the custom reset password page, we have the forgot protected routes, we have this redirect to or back, keeping the state, that is from where we are coming, and then we have implemented the use custom hook, that is the use auth hook, loading indicators, and we have the dark mode also. So guys, that's all about this video. So if you have liked the video, do give us a thumbs up and do like the video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channels. It helps me a lot by building these great videos for you guys. So thank you. Bye bye, tata, take care, and have a good day and have a great day.